Hello and welcome to this webinar by the Hindu on applying for grad schools abroad. What you need to know. Here's what you should know. Um, for many Indian students, going abroad, studying abroad is a very big aspiration. For many of us, we've gone through that. Many students currently, they aspire to study abroad. For them, it means a passport to better education, better exposure, perhaps to live abroad, earn more money, better career, more professional growth. So it represents many things. And until now, the many of us have wanted to go abroad to study in grad programs, graduate schools, which means master's degrees and or PhD degrees and so on. Although now there is a trend towards students wanting to go abroad for undergrad also, but this particular webinar is focused on grad schools, applying for grad schools. Are you considering applying for grad schools? Here's what you should know. So studying abroad remains a very big passion, a big aspiration. And statistics show that the US continues to be the biggest destination for Indians, although people are going abroad to study in the UK, in Australia, and also to countries where English is not spoken outside the university. So they're going, but it still remains largely a US focused one market until now. And statistics show that India, US universities, for instance, that they focus 66% of them. It's data from the Institute of International Education. They say that 66% of US universities focus on India for their international student uptake, followed by China, Vietnam, and so on. And this year, 2024 spring, 47% more Indians have applied to US universities. So that's a big jump. And if you go through that website, you'll see many data. And in almost every state in the US, 1/3 of the students are from India. So US remains the top destination, but there are other upcoming destinations. We can discuss that also. We have thousands of people who have registered for this webinar. They may drop in, ask questions. We'll keep it interactive. We have two very distinguished panelists to discuss this topic. We have Mrinalini Batra of the International Student Exchange. She herself, she went and studied she studied engineering at the Delhi College of Engineering. Then she went to do her grad school in the US at the Stevens Institute of Technology. And for whatever reason, she did a career switch. And for 30 years now, she's been helping Indian students study abroad in the US across. So we have here, she'll share her own personal story and then what she does professionally. We also have another very distinguished panelist. His name is Anil Kumar. He's currently the CEO of Jodi365.com. He has a very interesting background. He's a BTech from IIT Madras, and then he went to study MS in Iowa State engineering, then PhD in engineering at UMich, the University of Michigan. And then he did an MBA at the Booth School in Chicago. So he's like a veteran of graduate school programs. He's applied, studied, and got. He'll explain how he got aid and how he managed all that. So his own personal experiences. We do graduate school abroad, and then we want to live there, right? So some of that also he will discuss. So we'll start with Mrinalini. So what give us your tips. What do you think students should do? What parents do? What teachers? What others?
Thank you so much, Kalyan.
Yes.
Thank you for having us here, and it's a pleasure to be here. And I would like to thank everybody who's joined for making time for us. Studying abroad, it has been, I think, very popular in India for a very long time. And the number of graduate students going has only increased, even though you said that undergrads are also going, and a lot of them are. So coming to graduate students, of late, I was a graduate student a long time ago. So I'm not going to go back and talk much about my experience because I think too many things have changed. The way admissions took place, the way applications went, to what the rules and regulations regarding students are. So I'm going to launch into a short presentation, um, which is just to kind of touch upon why you would like to study abroad, what we think that you should be doing in order to make your journey a little easier. So, the first question, of late I find that many times people come in and they will say, I want to go to the US or go to some place for a master's or for an MBA. And I'm differentiating between a master's and an MBA because an MBA is a totally different journey, and a master's would mean MS and an MA. So when they come to tell me that they want to do a master's, not an MBA first, my first question is, why are you really seeking a master's education? As Kalyan mentioned, it could be because you're looking for a degree might give you a better opportunity in India or wherever else. And here I'm not saying why abroad, I'm just saying why a master's. Because sometimes people will do a master's to get, of course, strengthen their knowledge base per se. Sometimes you will also hear that, well, I want to go settle down in another country, so I think studying there would give me a foot in the door. It could be to switch your career because, like me, I did an electrical degree and then I wanted to do computer science. So I did a master's in computer science. And of course, there is also my parents want me to do a master's, so I'm going to do a master's. I hear that also. Well, whatever your reasons, I think what is important before you start applying is that you understand what your reason is, because that should determine where you want to go and how you want to pursue this process. From US being the top destination, you have the options of so many English speaking countries. And of course, Germany is also so very popular because it is so much cheaper. So you need to first figure out that what your plans are. Why are you seeking an education? How does this education fit in your long term goals? You want, because some people will come in and say, it's not really the degree that is so important to me. I just want to go and settle in Canada or in the US. So the question you need to ask is that what is the reason for you to do a master's, and then select the appropriate country, the master's program to study. And of course, I have put in why abroad. This is a seminar on why abroad, but I still think that it's important for us to consider. I have a young MBA student right now who is applying, who studied in the US and is back in India working on some entrepreneurial stuff. So for him to apply abroad for an MBA does not make sense because he wants to work in India. He would rather study in Singapore or India and even Europe because he says, this is the ecosystem I need to learn more about. So before you decide that, okay, I want to go abroad to study, be clear about what your reasons are. The destinations, I've mentioned only a few, and this slide I think changes every year. It is still missing the New Zealand, it is still missing a whole lot of other countries people go to. Germany is also not here because I also think that when you start considering where you want to study, you want to figure out what is important. If you want to go and study in Germany, please make sure that you have at least some understanding of the language. Even if the program is in English, in class you will be studying in English, but every time you step outside, if you have to work in a team on a project, if you have to go seek an internship, the employers, the professors do expect that you will be able to understand the nuances of their language and subsequently their culture in order for you to excel. So, which is why most of the countries that I show on my slide or the countries that I work with are English speaking countries. And you will find in the long term that it is really hard to be in a country which is not your own, because apart from cultural settings, there is a fair amount of understanding about who Indians are, but there is also a lot of xenophobia. So if you speak the language, you will settle in and fit in much faster. So coming back to where to study. Now, where should you study? Should you study in the US or Canada? It will depend on where you want to go. I'm sorry, not where you want to go, what you want to do post that. If the idea is to go and do research, then look through the programs in the US or a UK or even Canada to figure out what kind of research facilities are being offered. Even in the US, if you're going to do a research, you're going to study, a master's can be with a thesis and without a thesis. So if you are the one who wants to do research, please select the right program. In the UK, they very clearly say taught masters and they say research postgraduate. So depending on what your goal is, you need to select the right kind of program. And programs can be of 1 year, 21 months, and 2 years also. Sometimes students extend their program to 2 years, especially in countries like the US, because it allows them to be there for that much time and be able to network and find the jobs that they want or an internship that they want. So, suitability of the plan, what you want to study is important, and of course, the cost of the plan. I have a feeling that, Anil is going to be much more informative about it. Cost of the program, I am going to touch upon only that the cost of studying in different countries is very different. So if a US is going to be anything between $40,000 to $50,000 or 30,000 to $40,000 for a master's 1 year tuition fee, the living expenses will vary based on where you study. If you study in the Bay Area, if you study in New York City, the cost of living is much higher than if you went to Indiana or if you went to Montana or if you even went to Louisiana as a state to study. Same goes to UK also. The costs that you see are going to be maybe 30% or so cheaper than uh, the US, but not at places like Oxford and Cambridge and Imperial. For places which are outside of these 3 or 4 colleges, the cost of tuition may be a little cheaper. Netherlands is mentioned here because Netherlands will cost you about uh, 20,000, 15,000 euro. So Netherlands, Singapore, Ireland, these are very viable options in terms of tuition. They cost much less than UK and the US. And I have not missed mentioning Canada, but Canada would be about 30% less. And I think Canada, even today, despite all the noise that we hear, is still most open to having students come in and study. As per the figures released by the Ministry of External Affairs, Canada had more Indian students going last year than the US also did. These are statistics that one has picked up from the site, but it could be wrong. So make sure that you're looking at the costs also. Will I get scholarship? Will I get financial aid? That's a secondary question. Because even if you get financial aid or so, you would have to be exceptionally good for that particular university. And that brings us to the chances of getting in. Now, when it comes to chances of getting in, I'm going to go to the next slide and then come back. What is it that they are going to look at? When you apply for a master's to anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter whether it is Germany, whether it is Canada, whether it is Singapore. The first thing they are going to look at, and this is master's, I'm not talking about the MBA at all right now. When you're talking about a master's, the first thing they look at is your academic preparation. If I want to do a master's in computer science, you should have come with either a degree in computer science or in mathematics and have done relevant courses. If it is a mechanical engineering, some colleges will insist that you have a degree in mechanical engineering. If it is something like management of technology, then you could come from very different backgrounds also. So the suitability of your undergraduate program is important, and the reputation is also very important. And IIT will always get more brownie points because they understand how much effort it has taken for you to get into it, what your competition is. But this does not mean that if you go to an NIT or if you go to even Amity, I'm not saying anything, I mean, private colleges also, they will consider you if you've done well.
We seem to be having some issue. Anil, are you there? Would you like to jump in?
Yeah, gladly. Gladly, Kalyan, if you'd like me to chime in while we get Mrinalini back.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm really glad to have this opportunity to share some of my lessons learned. I've got the gist of the audience over here, which I'm going to cite. I understand that there are, well, in excess of 1,500 and people signing in from Chennai, Bangalore, Delhi, Hyderabad, Lucknow. And the most pertinent, which I want to address, is that the streams of interest are engineering, MBA, and MS, and medicine. I can speak with credibility most on three of those four: engineering, MS, MBA, also a PhD, not medicine, but good amount of what I share may apply to other fields also. To give context, let me walk through a little presentation of my own. And Kalyan, I'll leave it to you to moderate the flow. Maybe once I finish this little introduction, we can make it more unified between what Mrinalini was sharing and what I have to share. So let me know when you see my presentation on screen. Can people see what I have to share? Is my screen visible, Kalyan? Okay, I take it that it is visible. So here I'm back in India, and I didn't think that my career path would bring me back to India. And I think about how when I was finishing up my undergrad, and it was a dream come true for me to get into one of the IITs, not just one of the IITs, but IIT Madras, just a few miles from where I grew up in Chennai. My aspiration was to become a research professor, and the best opportunities at the time were in the US. And I followed the wave of students. Roughly half of my graduating class would go to the US for grad school in my time. And we're talking 30 years ago. So this is my journey. And if it's a little less busy, I'll get to another slide if it's a little busy. So once I finished my undergrad, and I had these timelines, I got in May of 1990, and then in the summer between my third and fourth year, I took the GRE, and I gave thought to which field, which universities. And by December that year, in my final year of college, I applied to a set of universities and had to make decisions by April, May the following year, within a couple of months of graduating. And then I began my master's. I did an MS with thesis, and it was a natural progression to go on to earn a PhD. There was a little overlap between my defending my master's at Iowa and beginning my PhD at Michigan. And rather than go into academia, my career aspirations evolved. I'm surprised that in hindsight, I didn't quit my PhD because grad school was brutal for me. It wasn't a picnic, and I think people need to be aware of what they're getting into. Choose carefully. But there'll be more nuggets to share, hopefully in a long Q&A, because there are many interesting questions that have come up. I went into industry instead, into consulting. I worked at a boutique consulting firm out of Seattle for almost 8 years, more than 7 years. It was a firm that catered to clients in the marine industry, and I can talk about what my work also entailed. But then this is if you want to think really hard about what doors might open to you long term. But again, while I was going about my consulting career, my aspirations evolved. I thought about what more could I do, what impact could I have, what contributions could I make, how rewarding would I feel, how fulfilling might life be. I saw fit to take a detour onto a path to entrepreneurship through B School. So I applied and got into Chicago Booth's weekend MBA program, which allowed me to live and work full time in Seattle, attend classes all day Saturday in Chicago, and fly back home for the duration of my program. But as it turned out, I got more career mobility uh, in the sense that I got permanent residency in the US while halfway into my program, which allowed me to go to school full time. So that's what I did. I finished the second half of my program in Chicago. And again, uh, the program was enriching. It allowed me to think about what beyond MBA, and I had this entrepreneurial itch. So here's the interesting thing: pursuing opportunity is what took me from India to the US 30 years ago. And 15 years ago, I saw an opportunity for a next generation matchmaking platform and service in India for a changing India. That's what I came back to found. And that's what I've been doing, running jodi365.com. And before I hand it back to Kalyan, I'll say that by design, I want to open it up to specific questions. And this can serve as additional context, as in some of the universities that I applied to, 10 universities, 9 in the US, 1 in Canada, the universities that I got admits from, offers of financial aid from, whether it was a teaching assistantship or a research assistantship or a combination of the two, and the university that I applied to for a PhD and then also for an MBA. And I'll keep this open, or I'll return to this when you give the floor back to me, Kalyan.
Yes, no, what was curious was your MS was related to your undergrad, then you did
That's
PhD.
right.
That was also related in a sense.
That's
And
right.
then you sort of bungee jumped to MBA. What was that?
Yeah, good question. So, and this would go back to one of the takeaways that I hope people take from this discussion. See, what we think we'd like to do at 20 is different from what we think we'd like to do at 30 or even at 25. I'm not sure we have enough of an idea at 20 to make career decisions which may impact a long professional career. I had this much sense that here, and I'll go to this once more. When I applied to these universities for an MS, one of the universities that I got admitted to with a teaching assistantship was at the University of Maryland at College Park. They admitted me into a direct PhD. And I was nervous about committing to a field, working with a particular professor, specializing in what was his forte, and that being my long-term field of expertise. I wasn't sure that I knew enough to commit to a direct PhD, but I'd already accepted this offer from the University of Maryland, got a visa also stamped. But I had a change of heart, and I chose to attend University of Iowa instead, thinking that I'd be better placed while finishing up my master's to make a decision for where to get a PhD from, in what area particularly, and then beyond. And the thing about, see, at one point at 20, my dream was to write the next Bible in my field, which was hydrodynamics. And the more I helped to advance the field, making one tiny little dent, writing papers that probably a few dozen people in the field would read and appreciate, I thought about how, while the well was getting deeper, I was able to dig deeper and deeper, my footprint was getting narrower. I didn't quite enjoy that, and I wanted to have broader impact. So, which took me away from academia, which is not to say that people don't make phenomenal, yeah, impact while at academia. There are Nobel Prizes that are celebrated for good reason. It goes back to self-awareness too. I don't I don't have to make a case that human brains haven't developed until 25. The frontal lobe's still growing in one's early 20s, which means that whatever is responsible for risk taking, judgment is not fully there. And then here at 2021, we are supposed to make these decisions with long lasting implications. So if somebody wants to do something else, I say, and I'll use this English expression, allowed here. If somebody challenges me, you earned, oh, my father, my late father, how much grief he gave me. Look at this guy, got an IIT degree, got an MS, got an MBA, got a PhD, got a green card, and this fool has come back to India to do a startup, and that too in matchmaking. It's my life. It's your life, people. Live your life. Yeah.
Okay. Mrinalini, we lost you for a moment. So can we go back to, there was one question that was quite relevant to what you were saying. Somebody asked, I'll give his name. He asked how important, Akhilesh Mohan asked, how important is GRE for admission and for scholarship? Is it, how much time should be invested in the GRE?
Well, I think that there's certain colleges and certain programs that will not admit you without a GRE. But there is an increasing trend in colleges to accept you without GRE also. For example, if you applied for a master's in computer science, some of the top schools are also not asking for a GRE if you wanted if admission there. But if you're going to apply for a scholarship or a teaching assistantship, it is another factor for colleges and the professors to look at and kind of assess that where do you lie in the pool of students that are coming in. So GRE is important for, and for some courses it's not important at all. For example, if somebody wants to go in for an LLM, I don't know if there are any students for law here, but if they want to go for an LLM, you really do not require a GRE for any of the courses. If you are going to go study for computer science also, you can pick between colleges that want a GRE and don't want a GRE. Does that answer the question?
Yes, surely. Go ahead with your presentation. You had some more things to
Yeah,
say.
I wanted to. I'm sorry, I got very unceremoniously, my internet dropped me out. And I will add to what Anil said, that when people think, I came back to India a long time ago, almost 30 years ago to start this. And the first question people look at you is that, why would you give a green card and come back to India? Well, your plans changed. You decided to do something else and you did. And yet at some point when internet doesn't work, you know, I want to have better internet of a developed country. That's something that I do miss. So coming back to the presentation, we were talking about standardized tests, and as Akhilesh asked, that GRE, do we need it or not? Similarly, when it comes to an MBA, and you will need a GMAT for an MBA at most schools around the world. Most of the selective programs will require a GMAT, whereas all selective programs for a master's or an MA will not require a GRE. It also depends on the geography you are going to be applying to. And the third thing that colleges, when you apply for a master's, look at these days is how relevant is your background apart from your degree. Because 5 people go to the same college, do the same program, one will know much more than the others because he or she has been engaging in internship, has been learning languages. I'm talking computer science, I mean, maybe it can be something else also, has been engaging in writing papers, etc. All of that matters. And if you're going to apply for an MBA, please keep in mind that no program that is very prestigious will take you without work experience. In India, you can sit for the CAT and get directly into the IIMs, but you cannot get into an ISB without 2 years of work experience. Yes, there are early deferral programs I can apply today and get in, but you can't still go to college for an MBA for the next 2 years. So if you're looking for an MBA, please make sure you have work experience. If you're looking for a master's, I still would recommend some exposure to the industry because, as Anil put it, your plans change. When you start going to the industry, you at least know what you don't want to do. You understand that, oh, I would love to become an animator. And then you go in and realize that being an animator is nothing what you thought it would be. You could be studying psychology and you might want to do clinical psychology or HR for an organization. You think that you're very good talking to people and you would like HR, go work in it. It gives you an option to figure out that what you understand of the job or the industry, is that true? So colleges also look at how have you explored your interest outside of the classroom. And that is what I mean by a co-curricular engagement or experience. I'm going to go back to the last slide for a second, because this is a question that comes up every time somebody comes to meet me, whether it is for undergrad, grad, or a PhD. That can I work wherever I go, in the US, in UK, in Canada? Most countries where you go to study as an international student will allow you to work on campus for a limited number of hours per week, and you can get paid for that. But when you decide to work out of campus, you will need to have special permission from that country's immigration or justice department, a special permit, a work visa, a work permit to do so. And you cannot do that immediately when you go to most places. In US, you have to wait for 9 months or a year to complete the first year before you can go and work out of campus, until and unless it's a financial problem and the government gives you permission to do so. The second question that we get asked is, so can I stay back? Now, this has changed a lot from the time when I studied or Anil studied or now when you go to study. You are allowed, after every full-time program in almost every country, you spend so much money. We are ignoring at this point that you might have had a scholarship, but the assumption is you spend so much of your time, money, and energy studying for a program. So they allow you the opportunity to stay back there and get some exposure to the market. And that varies between 1 to 3 years. And in some countries like the US, you can be just move into a post completion a study period, engagement, a training period. In Canada, they will give you, if you have 2 year degree, they will allow you to work again for 3 years. Some places you can stay, but you will have to have a job within 90 days of graduation. Some people, you don't need a job. You can just go there and stay there till you find a job. Now, I will touch upon the H1 because I mean that is something that I'm guessing a lot of people will be interested in. The H When you graduate from a US university, you are allowed 1 year of post completion practical training. And within 60 days of your graduation, you are supposed to find a job in order for you to work. Right? So they don't need to sponsor you, so you can continue working for a year. Then we get into a classification of a degree which is called STEM program: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So, of course, all engineering programs are STEM. Some of the MBAs are also STEM now, some of the psychology and economics programs are STEM because that allows you to stay for 2 extra years. So, if you are in a STEM program, your optional practical training, your OPT, is for 3 years. So, you can work without moving to an H1 for up to 3 years, right? Now, we come to H1. I am graduating from Harvard and I have got a job, at a Citibank in New York City or at Google. Does it guarantee me a H1 visa? No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all because visas are now a lottery system. If you come into the lottery, then you can apply for an H1. Otherwise, please complete your 1 year or 3 year and you have to leave. So that is something that I wanted to touch upon because you cannot decide today that I will go to the US and I will work and I will make up all the money I have spent there. Please do not assume that is going to happen because it may not happen for you. You may go to the best college and still have to come back. So this is basically components of your application. What are they going to ask? Some of the programs like MBAs as well as some master's programs also ask for video essays because I think they want to also assess how articulate are you, how well can you communicate. Research papers, etc., are important depending on the program that you're going. Academic year in most countries begins in July, August, or September. So you start applying a year before that. At this point in time, we have met some MBA deadlines already. We are looking forward to meeting the computer science, the dance therapy, and all these deadlines starting 1st of November. In fact, starting 20th October also because Carnegie's deadline for computer science is 20th October. So please take your GRE more than a year before you're looking to apply because that is going to take that much time. And do not take an exam without thinking about anything because it does require some familiarity with the test. And even though it is very low level mathematics, if you're an engineer, you still have to practice it because you moved out of it. So that possibly brings me to the end of my presentation. And Kalyan, back to you. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the point that the H1 lottery, it has become a lottery, so it's changed. It's made it's a big impact on what decisions we are making because there is no guarantee that you will get a job in the US. So always think of, and the point she made that all the money that you're because we think that once we get there we'll work there, earn, and pay back our loans. That may not happen because things have changed. So what you're investing in education is an investment in the education itself. So it's not that the US is going to pay you back the loans. Anyways, we've got several questions on PhD. So I would, like for instance, GRE, do you get total funding? Does it cover just tuition and stay? And there was somebody who asked about, so yeah, a lot of PhD questions. What is your take? How can you help us, Anil?
I am assuming that, Dr. Kumar is going to handle the PhD question.
Yes. Anil, can you hear us?
Okay. Yeah, I can. Yeah, want to make sure that yeah, it was clear who you wanted to have step in. Before I get into the specific answer, I hope people keep in mind what I have to share. Look, in life, we may want some things that somebody else may be in a position to provide to us. This is good advice. Don't appeal to someone's self-interest, kindness. Appeal to their self-interest. It applies even to this whole admissions process, applications process. You want to get into some good university overseas for whatever reason, for good reason. So you may want a seat from them. You may want financial aid from them. Remind yourself, appeal to their self-interest. What's in their self-interest? To get the best students who would go on to do very well professionally, who would increase the reputation of the university so that they would rise in rankings. They would be able to command better professors in the job market for professors, more fees from students, more applications, more higher tuition fees. So they'll want as good a student as they can get. Also keep in mind that they're a business. They have P&L, profit and loss responsibility too. They may be dependent if it's a public university, which is funded by the state. They may get some subsidies from the governments, but everybody has a mandate to make sure that they know how to keep the bills, the lights on. And how? Through tuition expenses. And there's a huge market for international students in the US, in Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand. So keep in mind, you have what they want. You have tuition dollars to give to them to go and throw into their economy. The challenge then for you is going to be why me as against somebody else who may also want to get into that university. So I'm encouraging some big picture thinking over here. If you're applying to any university, let's say an MBA, you started a PhD, so I'll start with a PhD. Be prepared to address this very clearly in your application. Why are you interested in this field? Why at this university to work with which particular professor? And why should they hire you? Because a PhD means getting a research apprentice on board, somebody who will make further contributions to a professor's research program. If it is a professor who doesn't have tenure yet, oh, be prepared to work twice as hard than with somebody who's able to kick back in a tenured role. Tenure meaning they have a job for life. So look at it as a job application. Why should they hire you? There's a related question here, right? On how do you optimize your chances of getting financial aid? Typically, when universities, research programs, research professors take in students for, um, say, a PhD program, it's because they expect that the research is funded, or there's an ongoing grant, or there's a new grant for which there will be a need for graduate students, maybe even a postdoc or two or three, depending on how big the table is. So the funding will typically come from the research program, from the grant. It's a job application. Why should they hire you? How are you going to be a better researcher, better aspiring researcher, budding researcher than someone else? So this is where it helps to show that you have the intellectual horsepower to do well in the program. No point getting admitted into a PhD program if you're going to flunk out of the qualifying exams, whether it's the written qualifying exam or the oral qualifying exam. So it gives the university confidence if you come from a rigorous academic program, which is why there is this aura, oh, attended one of the IITs or one of the NITs, because even if you're a 6-pointer, what did Chetan Bhagat make famous? 5.0? Even if you're a 5.0, they know that you have the intellectual horsepower. Maybe you lacked in motivation. Your challenge will be, oh, my grades suck. How do I make the case that, yes, there were extenuating circumstances? I'll take a detour over here if I may, Kalyan. And if you want me to be crisper, please chime in. These were my grades. I'm not ashamed that I collected 8 C's and 4 D's in my undergrad. And my grade point average was 8.6 on 10, something that I was very proud of, but maybe a middling 3.49. Then again, it was a 3.49 at an IIT, which probably gets taken as, oh, wow, if he managed a 3.49 at an IIT, he can hold his own in our rigorous program. And something else that I was able to talk of. Look at this. I had my GPA rise every semester, no senioritis in my third final year. So I can say that, look, I was motivated. I had a rough start. I didn't know how to keep up, but I hung in there. I persevered. Think of your story, right? Steve Jobs put it well. It's the storytellers who win. Own your story. Talk about your strengths.
Anil, you made a very important point. If you're applying for PhD, think of it as a job application, unlike masters or even MBA. So here you're saying, I'm going to be useful. I'm going to earn you money through my research after I go through the qualifying phase. So think of it as a job application and then apply. That's a very good point. Also, I was thinking that there's no one silver bullet. There's no one guarantee. You do this test, you get admitted. That's not the case in foreign universities. They look at the total package. They look at not just your GRE scores. They look at the total package. Where are you coming from? What are you interested in? Are you clear? Are you well informed? Or that's wouldn't that be the case, Mrinalini?
Yes, in fact, I think I saw a question that somebody asked that NUS has GRE listed as optional.
Yes.
So what do we do? Now, look, when you're applying, things are so competitive right now. When you apply, the number of Indian students applying for admission abroad is phenomenal, and each is better than the other. So, as Anil said, it's not just your grades. Yes, your grades can be low to begin. Show that you're motivated, it is going up and up and up. The internships that you do, the online courses that you take, the certificates that you earn, be it in a data science, be it a language that you learn, be it take a mathematics exam or whatever else you are doing, all of it adds to show your initiative, your desire to make a difference, your desire to present a better application. So what do we, recommend that, okay, if it says GRE is optional, take a baseline GRE and let's see, take a diagnostic and tell us where you are. If you are going to take 1 year to get the score that you need to get into the school, then apply to optional programs. But if you can crack the GRE by studying for 2 months, please take it, because it will add yet another achievement on your application, that, oh, this is where this person stands. That is where, if a person applies from an IIT as well as applies from a public university, a private university in India, and they have, let's say, similar grades, the GRE sometimes works as leveling off. They're telling that, oh, very high GRE has a 337 or 340. This means that students' aptitude for English and math is pretty strong, and their analytical skills are pretty good. So the more you present in terms of your background, the stronger it gets. There's nothing like optional. There are no options. As he said, this is a business for them. When you go there, where you are going to land up after that is going to be important for the colleges. It's important for their rankings. So they want you to come in because you are going to bring some value to the college.
If I
Okay,
may
there's
add
one
here,
more question. Yes, yes. Anil,
okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think of an analogy to the job application process again. Even if you're applying for a master's, um, don't make it easy for someone to weed you out. They get hundreds of applications, and in between, oh, can I have a waiver for of the application fee? Can I have a waiver of the GRE? Look, there are people who will give a fingernail, who will give their cut. Is the feed got interrupted? Okay. For a moment, it looked like we were offline. Are we online, Kalyan, Pranali? I
Yes,
see you
I can
nodding.
hear you.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you are. You
So
are.
Go ahead.
don't make it easy for don't make don't make it easy for people to weed you out. As in, look, this is a little too much work. How motivated are you? How willing are you to go above and beyond? So I'm glad, Pranali, you chimed in with, if you don't have, let's say you're from a tier two university, but if you're at the top of the class, it's similar to this lovely scene in the Will Smith movie, Happiness, Pursuit of Happiness. And he gets asked in this job interview in which he shows up without a suit. He shows up without a shirt. Oh, so how did you do in college? Well, I was in the top 25% of my class. How big was the class? 10 students. That's not impressive, but I was number one in some radio communications course. So that I'm so interested in this field that look at how I excelled in this. Look at how I went and got a research project in this area, how I went out of my way to get an internship opportunity working with this professor at some overseas university. Show that you're passionate about something and you really want to go out and make a difference. Hunger goes a big way, perseverance goes a big way because they are looking for someone who will make their life easier. Be a great research assistant, be a great teaching assistant. And since we focus on PhD, before we go to another question, Kalyan, for an MS again or for an MBA, think of these three questions. Every university will want to know, why do you want an MBA? Why at this university and why now? Right? If you don't have your story figured out, if you don't have the arc of your career mapped out, you're not going to be as convincing as someone else who is very clear. This is what I've been doing. This is how many years of work experience. And there's no upper limit on work experience. I'm alluding to one of the questions over here. And more generally, if I may, Kalyan, thanks for sharing the volume of questions that came in as part of the registration process. I saw many questions on, oh, please tell us some more about the admissions process. Please, admissions process, how to choose the right grad school. I'll get into this. And I'm talking about how I gave this talk first 15 years ago at my alma mater. There is so much information online, and we're talking about pre-chat GPT, pre-perplexity. There's so much. Should you go to graduate school? What advice regarding pursuing a PhD? Grad school listings, getting into and succeeding in grad school, guides on grad school and beyond. The links may be broken, but you have thousands of resources out there. Guide to grad school admissions, resources and advice for grad students, how to succeed in grad school. You get the idea. There's no excuse today. I feel like cursing for effect. There's no effing excuse today for not having this figured out inside out, which doesn't mean that there isn't a place for someone like Mrinalini. Coaches play a terrific role. Lean on people as much as you can, take as much help as you can, but help them help you by getting a running start. Do your research. And if you're interested in a university, they are motivated to get the best students in. Go to their admissions section on their website, look at their tips, go to their forums, go to their resources, reach out to students who graduated from there. Show that you're hungry to work to study at that university and target it to that particular university. Because the advice that you ask here would be generic. We had to speak to people who come from different tracks, different interested in social sciences. I can't credibly give Gyan on social sciences. Go look up the program. What does some liberal arts college have to say about what they look for? And I just
Well,
one of the things one of the things that I saw in Anil's your presentation, you had something um, two were my dream universities, three were safes, four were something. So you're like, I want to study. This is my dream university, but even if I don't get there, I'll study in the university that's probably safe. What is safe then?
Yeah. So in the US, they call it a safety school. In my college, the slang was safe. So where you expect that you may be a shoe in. So this for good reason. They had a saying that aim for the stars. Even if you don't reach the stars, at least you'll get to the top of a skyscraper, right? Or you'll reach the moon. My dream was to get into MIT, University of Michigan, or California, Berkeley. So this is from 30 years ago. But roughly, I thought that, wow, this would be a dream come true to go to one of these top universities, uh, the top universities. And then this would be good too. University of Maryland, University of Iowa, Michigan State. And I thought that, yeah, I had a very good chance to get into, say, University of Rhode Island or Memorial University of Newfoundland in Canada. So make sure that if my aspiration was to get into, say, good grad program, at least I won't have to wait a full year for applying, that I not aim too high and then strike out. So as it turned out, I got admitted into all of the programs. But what mattered to me was getting financial assistance too. I came from a modest middle class family. I mean, I'm among the lucky ones that had a loving, caring family that believed in the importance of education, gave their kids a great foundation, and yeah, my elder brothers who began working straight out of school, they told the kid brother and me, you study, right? You're good at school, you're good in accounts, you have aspirations to study further, you study, don't worry about fees. My eldest brother was a student working part-time in the US, and he covered my application fees 30 years ago. How do you repay that debt of gratitude? The point here is uh, aim for the best, because for better or worse, we live in a world where credentials matter. You may be a shining star, but you come from a tier 3 university versus a tier 2 university, you're seen a little differently. But ultimately, don't see getting into a top university as a ticket to a cushy life. It only means that a door will open a little bit easier, or you'll have an easier chance at the next thing. You'll still have to prove yourself wherever you go. So if someone thinks that they get admitted into a US university with or without financial aid, they go there and it's the land of milk and honey and everything else. And then you have your car and a picket fence and 2.5 kids and a dog. You're going to be busting your ear over there. But I've gone beyond your immediate question, Kalyan. It makes sense to assess yourself, get a realistic assessment of what your chances are. Look at your peers, look at your immediate seniors who went through your program. What were their odds of getting in to similar programs? What do you think your odds may be? Speak to career counselors, speak as much, look up information online and aim a little higher.
Mrinalini, there was a question about law in the UK. Since we have much of our talk has been on the US, but how is the scene in the UK?
Well, law, if somebody wants to study law, they can do law at the undergrad level in India, and they can do law only at the undergrad level in the UK or Singapore. Those are the only two places. But most of our students can't apply to Singapore for law because your result will not be out before their deadline is over. UK law, you can apply only to, it's an undergrad program. I'm going to reinforce that. That's because this is a master's seminar, I must say. They can do it after finishing their undergrad. Let's say somebody's done an undergrad in history or in pol science or even English and wants to go study law, fine. But you are applying as an undergraduate and you will be able to apply to only 5 programs because that is the limit on the application. So it's a 3-year degree. You will apply like an undergraduate student. You will have to take exams like the LNAT, which is their exam for getting into a law program. Like the GRE, some of the law schools will not require the LNAT, but a lot of them do. They will either do the LNAT or they will do the UK CAT in order UCAT to get into it. So law is an undergrad degree. You will graduate. I saw the question. It says, what is the question of getting permanent citizenship? Studying in the UK or the US has absolutely, or any other country has absolutely no correlation to your finding permanent residency. That's a separate process. You are supposed to go study. If you have a job, a work permit, then you apply for a permanent residency. You have to fulfill certain laws, certain rules. You have to make an X amount of money, etc. in the UK in order to get a work permit also. Then only you move towards getting a permanent residency. It has nothing to do with law. You can study law, you can study math, and you can still get a permanent residency. And doing law in the US, in the UK, finding a job after that is not the easiest. Let me be very candid about it because I've had students go all the way from Oxford to Cambridge, and getting a job takes a little bit of doing in the UK for lawyers. If you're studying finance, you are in King's College or so, you can find a job much faster. You go to London Business School, you will find a job mostly if you are doing well. You go to LSE, you go to Side School of Business, you can get it. You go to Imperial for a master's in a tech program, you will find a job. Most of the time, because these are very good schools. But you do an undergrad in law, and will you find a job? You're not an expert. No, you may not.
Okay.
Can I take this question that I see here? Because somebody has written that do collective internship count rather than the full-time work experience. And I want to touch upon it because when somebody is applying for an MBA, they want not collective internships. They want full postgraduate, full-time work experience. The postgraduate means that you've completed your job, your studying, and then you work in the market and then you apply for it.
There was one specific question on agri-business management.
I think I know the student. I think I know Kirtana. What was the exact question? I've forgotten.
She's done agri-business management and she's looking for what else? What do I do?
Well, it depends on what she wants. Again, it brings back to the same question. I have lawyers who are looking to do an MBA. I have had doctors who have gone to do an MBA. You have to have a story when you're applying for an MBA. Getting into an MBA at a top business school in the US, UK, NCR, NUS, none of it is easy. Especially if you're a brown engineer, it is not easy at all because there are too many of them. Right now, there are far too many of them. So you have to have something in your background that you can show that this is why I want. So she can go for a PhD after, she can go for an MBA after agribusiness management, because she's going to maybe work with governments, maybe work with the Department of Agriculture, tell them how to, set their processes in place, or she could just move into a consulting business. It's her career goal. Where she wants to go, that will determine what she wants to study.
Okay, both panelists have stressed on self-study and research and map it out in your own head what you want to do. There are enough resources available. So both the panelists have stressed on that. There's one more specific question on Germany. Enlighten us, Mrinalini.
Well, I have very few students applying to Germany because of my own bias against students not knowing the language. As an international student, I was one long, long time ago. Even if you speak English in an English speaking country, there is a lot more to learn about their cultural nuances to get a job to settle down. And what I'm hearing from students in Germany is that in academia, while they're in college, they're having a decent time, they do well in classes and all. But when they have to go out to the industry and find a job, it is quite a closed industry. You have to have a professor or somebody go out and get you a job. So if you find a job, brilliant. As far as studying goes, and I can comment on the studying, if it is anything to do with engineering, physics, etc., phenomenal place to go and study. You cannot get better.
There was something about electronics engineering, the particular question.
A phenomenal place to go and study electronics engineering. It is very cheap because they have no tuition fees. They have a very nominal tuition fee for students. It's about 1,500 euros or 2,000 euros. That's about it. It's only the living expenses. So Germany is very popular. But please, if you're looking at Germany at 22, 24, 26, you're not that old, spend a year learning German along with whatever you're doing. And then please apply to Germany and go. It's a great place to go and study and great place to work for technology.
But not for work, you're saying. It's harder
No,
to...
Look, it's harder to find. So, but if you speak German, if you've learned German, then you will be able to interact and work your way through the system.
Right.
You will be able to talk to an employer. The employer will have the confidence that when you step out to talk to a client, you will be able to connect. Because when you speak a language, you understand what people around you are saying. You understand what the cultural nuances are. You know what to do, what not to do. When I don't understand the language, I don't know. When I go to Germany or someplace, I'm lost. Because French, you can still read and understand. I'm totally lost because I don't understand. Whereas in the US, you're the boss. You can get Google Maps and go and understand anything. If somebody is being mean and rude to you, you understand. And so Germany is a great place to go, especially if you're cash strapped. I would say just do a level 1 or level 2 at Max Muller Bhavan or wherever else, get a smattering of German and then go and study.
So some of these non-English speaking countries, what else are we looking at? Like Germany, is Japan a viable place where you can go and study? Is that?
Yeah, you can go study. Some of the Japanese universities are becoming, popular. You can go, a lot of people do still go to ETH in Zurich. They go to EPFL because these are very well-known technical schools in Switzerland. They're in English, and Switzerland, they speak a little more English than Germans do or French do. So you will find your way. But if you know Italian or French, it's better. People are going to places like Hungary to study medicine. Um, Wherever there is an English program, you can go and study. But getting a job or settling into that country would depend on your ability to navigate their culture. So we come back to US, UK, Canada, Ireland, Netherlands, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand. I would say for Indian students, of course, these are overpopulated, but these are very good options because you have a better understanding of how things work there because you can understand. INSEAD is one, what shall I say, one aberration in here because INSEAD is the top ranked consulting business school outside of the United States. And because the class is so international, 90% international, it doesn't matter whether you speak French or not, going to INSEAD is a no brainer.
There was a question about France, INSEAD, yes.
Exceptional school, very high GMAT required. If you're looking to apply to INSEAD, please make sure you have some international experience on your, whether it is a 3-month internship or something. They really value it. 90% of the class has international exposure.
Okay. So meanwhile, Anil is chatting away and answering all the questions individually. Thanks, Anil. It's a real service. Thank you. So I think we intended on doing a 1-hour program. We're coming to the end of it. There's still some questions coming. Maybe Anil can still answer them. But yes, so these are, I think we've had several takeaways, how the market has changed, how both the panelists have said, don't look at, the graduate program as a passport to just living in that country. That may happen eventually. These are two different things they've said. Is there anything that Anil or even Mrinalini, would you like to wrap up? What do you want to say based on all the discussions we've had so far?
I would say that if you have the opportunity, if you have the opportunity to study abroad, I would say please go for it. It is a phenomenal experience. And in these times when there is a need to have a global exposure, it is very critical. There are grants, and if you're going to study in the UK, there are a whole lot of grants and scholarships that governments and outside agencies offer, from the Manmohan Singh to the Aga Trust to whatever else, including scholarships from Chevening and all. So UK for masters is an easier option. Look for scholarship, and as Anil said, there is so much information available online. But when it comes to university specific information, please go back to their website and check. Don't read my website because something might have changed in that much time. But if you have a chance, please do. And the other way, I wanted to mention one more thing. There are a lot of what is called micro masters also available now. You can study for 3 semesters in India and go for 1 semester to an MIT and complete a master's degree. So the options are phenomenal. Go out, look out, and most of the consultants, including us, we don't charge for talking to people. You come in and have a basic chat. It's great fun for us. Come, ask your questions, drop in a line, we will answer that. It is only when we need to put in more effort. So go ahead, talk to people who have studied abroad, who have lived abroad, who are living abroad, who are in the academia. Ask them all the questions. Somebody will respond. They always do.
Okay. Is there a go-to place?
People around.
Okay. Is there a go-to place for all the government scholarships? Is there a link? Is there a?
Yeah, see, government scholarships are a little tricky. Yeah.
Go ahead. I've said.
If I may. So, if you're expecting scholarships from overseas governments, a lot harder. Because again, people act in their own self-interest. Government scholarships are dictated by politicians. Politicians care for votes from their citizens. So the scholarships will be primarily geared for students of their respective countries, their respective states. Indian government scholarships, again, don't bet your career on it. you can easily look online whether they exist, but I don't think that's even worth exploring. If you'd like to
Also,
correct me there, Nalini.
some of them also come with riders that if you have a government scholarship, you're supposed to come back to India and work for a couple of years or 5 years. Some of the outside scholarships also require you to go back to your home country and work there. So if your plan is to go settle there, don't think you can get a scholarship, go there, study, and then decide, oops, I'm already here, I will just stay back. It doesn't work that way. And some of the scholarships that I'm mentioning, like the Chevening or the Manmohan, these are trusts. These are not government scholarships, but they might all come with their own stipulations. So read the fine print, see what they are offering. Chevening offers 56 scholarships from it, to master students. So figure out what you want to do your research. A lot of information is available there, and if you get stuck, then reach out to someone to help you.
All right. Anil, yes, you wanted to say something? Yes.
Um, yeah, and for that reason, I wanted to return to this because Kalyan, if you saw me typing away furiously in response to the stream of comments coming in, I found myself rewinding to when I was in the shoes of all these students with aspirations to get into a master's program, a PhD program, an MBA program. So many before me have been so generous with their time, with all the resources that they will even put online. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to share a little bit of what I've learned along the way. I tell everybody best wishes, give it your best shot. I noted a few things that I wanted to share. Play the long game. You may be thinking that, look, my life may be set, or I think my life may be set if I get into a master's at a US university or a German, Canadian university. Think beyond. And this means practicing second order thinking. Okay, so you get in, and then what? And then something else might happen. Think, and then what? Don't just think near term. Don't think transactional. Think long term, whether it comes to relationships or even career aspirations. And I'd say cultivate self awareness because here you're talking about pursuing a field. You may not know yet what you'll do in the long term. I didn't think that I'd be come to be known as Uncle Anil Matchmaker. And there are still other things I might, inspired by all of what I've been sharing lately, whether it's resume writing tips or talking to graduate students finishing high school, I might just do something in education before long. But yeah, think long term, cultivate self awareness so that you understand what your strengths are, who you really are, where you're likely to make better contributions than what you think somebody may say is right for you. And see, before Neeraj Chopra made javelin a field or a sport that someone will turn the TV on late at night to watch, I use the example of a Nigerian javelin thrower who became the world champion after having learned how to throw the javelin watching YouTube. There's so much information online, folks. I'll tell you again, uh, in this information age, you have to worry about probably disinformation or excess information and staying focused. But if you're set on something, I want to figure out how do I get into a social sciences program in a PhD. There are listings of top social science programs, and you can go to each of those websites, look at what their social science departments have to say, look at all the guidance they put out there, look at specific websites for helping people get into graduate school programs. No shortage of resources out there, no excuse for not putting in the hard work. Talent alone may not be enough, aptitude may not be enough. Put in the hard work. And I wish you well because I think about, and I'll probably end with this, Kalyan. It's for good reason that my elderly mother used to say that travel is the best education. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I got to travel, to go and spend a good couple of decades in another society, to be able to straddle two societies today. The exposure would be great. And even if it were not to be in the near term, it's not going to be the end of your world. And I would wish for disappointments for all of you so that you are better prepared while you're still young to handle even greater disappointments in the future. It's very dark note on which to end, but yeah, good luck, folks.
All
No,
right.
Anil, I don't think that, Anil, that being failing is a bad thing. I think that it's important to do that now so that they are, when it comes at a more critical juncture, they know how to deal with it. I put up a
Very
post on
true.
LinkedIn saying that let the children fail. Learn how to fail and then go ahead. Pick yourself and move because nothing is permanent.
Yep.
All right. Thank you
Very
so
true.
much. I still because several questions, because as we started going, there was a question on sociology, on politics, on somebody asked, what about unconventional PhDs? So has the scene changed? Is because we've talked a lot about engineering, medicine, MBA, even some law, but the humanities, arts, how have things changed? And can we aspire? Should Indians aspire?
Of course, it has changed. From the time when we started working, it was computer science, engineering, computer science. The most popular course, one of the second with the computer science, the most popular course even at undergrad level is economics, not engineering. It is computer science and economics right now. At the master's level, also, we've had students go to do dance therapy, to do something in psychology, to do something in sustainable engineering, sustainable living, innovation, strategy. Uh, Even development. Development is very, very popular, by the way. Development economics, very, very popular. Public policy is very popular, and the process remains the same. It doesn't really change. They still require you to have grades. They still require you to have relevant experience in what to show what you've done to learn. So it has changed a lot. Social scientists are being sought by governments, by companies, because that EQ factor has also come in to get a holistic perspective on, even if you're making a software for, you know using NLP or something, you still need to understand the psychology of your audience. So all of the social scientists are very important.
And jobs are there abroad for those programs?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know why, but I find that a lot of the young women, really, really smart young women who gone to Ivy League colleges, they have all gone back to study again the public policy, and they're all placed with the think tanks and they're doing very well. Though I don't know, I don't want to make this a gendered question, but it's just so that my experience has been.
Okay, on that note, positive note, we'll wind up. It's not just engineering or medicine or MBA. There are many, many different fields which you know, uh, you can aspire for, do well. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining in. We'll hope to see you soon. Thanks.
Thank you.